The following Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast is a pay-per-viewpoint of WWE Crown Jewel 2019 scheduled for one host, myself, Tony Mango, because, well, it's Thursday afternoon on Halloween and schedules are weird. How are you doing, everybody? Drop your comments below. Tell me what you are doing today for Halloween. Tell me what you thought of WWE Crown Jewel. Keep the discussion going. Respond to what I'm saying and do all that other kind of jazz the way that we normally do in the comment section below. If you are on the audio-only feeds, then on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and Spotify and Anchor and Podbean and all that stuff, they don't give you the option of leaving a comment, so you should leave a star rating or whatever it is over there and hop on over to YouTube, subscribe if you haven't done that already, ring that little bell for notifications, like the video, and by all means, chat it up in the comment section there. So here's what we got going on here. Crown Jewel just went down. I have that all fresh in my mind. I'm going to be breaking down the card the way that I normally do things here, just talking about what I liked, what I didn't like, everything that happened on the results sides of things, my projections for the future, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the score. I've done, 700 episodes of these things by now. So let's just dive into it. Let's go into the kickoff, which was the way that they've normally been doing things, where they have Charlie Caruso and a couple other people, Booker T and Scott Stanford and David Otunga in this case, at the Stamford, Connecticut base of operations. So that way they don't have to worry about flying those people over. It makes perfect sense. And they're giving the rundown. They're doing the pre-show analysis type stuff, normal kind of scenario. But we also had the 20-man Battle Royal for the United States Championship. Title shot, not for the championship. And during this match, R-Truth pinned Sunil Singh and won the 24/7 championship. That was a fun little moment. And the match was won by Humberto Carrillo, as we likely saw coming from a mile away. When we were doing our prediction stuff, he was last up against Eric Rowan and Luke Harper. Rowan eliminated Harper, and Carrillo took advantage of that, pulled out the win with pushing Eric Rowan over the top rope. Pretty normal battle royal, nothing all that great, nothing bad. I think they could have done a little bit more to have a little bit more fun during it, and they could have spotlighted a couple more people and just made it to where it was, I don't know, just something a little bit more special. But I like battle royals, so even though this was somebody that I'm not particularly fond of, winning the match, making it very predictable, and not doing anything that's standing out as special or noteworthy or anything really to talk about, it still was fine. It's still just a battle royal. So that was okay. We then went into the actual main card. I hate doing that because to me, the pre-show is part of the main card. It's just, why is it a pre-show if it basically is the same thing? It's a whole nother discussion for another day. But the first match of the official card was actually Brock Lesnar against Cain Velasquez for the WWE Championship. And this match ended up being roughly 2 minutes and 13 seconds or so, I think is what it was. 2 minutes and 10 seconds. Less than 2.5 minutes. And what they did, oddly enough, I have to kind of pat them on the back for. Not that this is good. By all means, no. This was not a good match. This was not the type of thing that I would like to see them do. I don't think that this helps anybody. I don't think that Cain Velasquez looked good out of this. I don't think that this is like a great start to Brock Lesnar's title reign. Nothing. Like, it's really just an instance of what I might refer to going forward as the Lesnar of two evils, which is, I wanted Brock Lesnar to win this match because I didn't want them to do the exact same thing that they do with Brock Lesnar with Cain Velasquez, which is give the title to somebody, have him not do anything going forward, make him go do 5-minute matches or whatever it is, and just have 2 of those people on the roster. I don't need another one of them. Brock Lesnar is already completely going to waste as it is because he could do so much more and they don't want him to. So I hate it. I'm always going to hate it. If that was the rare exception of the deal, then that would be kind of fun. But the fact that every Brock Lesnar match is less than 5 minutes long and it's only a couple of moves and he either gets squashed or he squashes his opponent and that's about it, it means that none of them are fun because that's just the standard, formula that they follow through with. But with this one, Cain Velasquez did not impress me at all when they were doing the whole beating down Shelton Benjamin thing. And I really thought that he was going to not be able to pull off a good match. So maybe they felt the same. And Velasquez was kept to basically just do a mock MMA fight. They didn't do all that much wrestling. They didn't do all that much of anything. It was 2 minutes long. But it was basically booked like, let's try to replicate an MMA fight. And I'm not an MMA fan. I'm a pro wrestling fan. I like it when matches tell stories and they go on enough of a time frame that I can get invested and it can kind of go back and forth a little bit and, different things like that. Like, give me like Undertaker HBK from WrestleMania 25. Don't give me every MMA fight that's out there. If I cared about UFC, I'd watch UFC, and Smark Out Moment would be whatever the punny name for UFC would be. What would that be? Drop a comment below. Tell me what my stupid website name would be if that was the case and I did MMA stuff. But I do think that they did the right call here. Velasquez winning would have been a mistake, and him wrestling a longer match, I think, would have been a mistake as well, because I think that would have exposed how bad he is, because he signed like a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract or whatever it was. And even Triple H on the After the Bell podcast was saying like he's in basically developmental. So they've got to train him. They have to teach him to do these things. He can't just go in there as a former athlete and just know how to do it all. It doesn't work that way. Some people can do it. Some people are naturals. He might have to work on it. And I liked the idea that they had him, Lesnar, pronouns, pal, win with the Kimura lock, because they don't really do that all that often. More than likely, he wins with an F5, and this was a way for them to do something a little bit different. To me, this is one of those weird circumstances where they did the right call because they had done a stupid thing. And if you would have told me, the night before Crown Jewel yesterday, all right, you're in charge of booking, but you can't change the card. What are you going to do? You got to go going forward. How are you going to book these matches? I would have been like, all right, Brock Lesnar needs to beat Cain Velasquez by submission, and we need to just kind of push Velasquez off on the side. He needs to learn how to do stuff. He could come back at another point, and they could have a rematch if they really, really want to, or he could just fight some other people. I think that Lesnar needs to be the champion, and the only way that you can get around that is if somebody else who's on the actual roster becomes the champion, like a Braun Strowman or a Roman Reigns. And even though I don't have any interest at all in Brock Lesnar being the champion on SmackDown, I have more interest in him being the champion and trying to make something out of it than for them to give the title to Cain Velasquez and for him to not do anything for a bunch of months. There's more of a chance that Brock Lesnar competes than Velasquez. So ultimately, the Lesnar of two evils instead of the lesser of two evils. Brock Lesnar winning is the right decision. And now that they got this out of the way, I think that they need to do a Rey Mysterio match, but they can't really do it at Survivor Series. I don't know where they go. Now they've announced that Survivor Series is going to be Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. And I have no clue how they are pulling that off. I'm going to jump around a little bit here, but I will mention this now. How do they even have the people ringside? How do you have 5 versus 5 versus 5 and not make it a clusterfuck? How do you do that right after War Games, where you have these people in these matches that, realistically, if you were to say, give me 5 people from NXT and have them be representational of the NXT roster, they would be people that would be in opposing sides at War Games. It would be, for instance, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano. Well, if you take out the champions, I guess this means you take out the Undisputed Era, and then that kind of makes that a little bit easier. But are you just going to repeat the War Games team? Are you going to have Gargano, Ciampa, Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, and whoever the 5th person is on that one? Who would the 5th person be? Now I'm thinking about that. Dominik Dijakovic, I think. So, do you just do that? Or do you put Finn Balor in there and you have him teaming with the people that he just fought the night before? It's a little bit strange. And how do you do champion versus champion if you've got, for instance, the two world championships are on the same brand? They're on SmackDown. And how do you have them up against the NXT champion and make that seem like it's not just, Adam Cole next to Brock Lesnar? Who the fuck do you think's going to end up winning that match, And you got the Cruiserweight title. There's no equivalent on the other brands. There's the women's tag team titles. There's no equivalent on that brand. The 24/7 championship. How do you factor that in? What do you do with NXT UK? So I don't have a clue where they're going with this, but it would not shock me at all. I'm going to put it out there now before they do anything with the announcements on SmackDown or the announcements on Raw or anything like that. It would not shock me at all if they completely bypass the world champions. And what they do instead is they have Brock Lesnar defend the championship against Rey Mysterio, and they call that a Raw versus SmackDown type of deal. And they have the Universal Championship on the line between Bray Wyatt and, I'm spoiling what that is, Bray Wyatt and somebody on the Raw side, possibly Seth Rollins. And maybe they just don't even include Adam Cole. NXT UK is another thing too. How do you factor that in? I don't know. We'll discuss this another time. But post-match, they did do the whole thing with Rey Mysterio attacking Brock Lesnar. That's not over with. At some point, without just dropping it, they should do Rey get his ass kicked by Brock Lesnar. And then at that point, what do you do for TLC? What do you do for so on and so forth? And I don't know. I mean, we'll see how that all works out. I don't think it's going to be the best amazing television and the best pay-per-view structure, because I don't think that Brock Lesnar as champion is the most entertaining thing to do. But at least it's not giving it to Cain Velasquez and having him wrestle worse matches and less often. Let's go to the tag team turmoil match. That was for the World Cup to crown the quote-unquote best tag team in the world, despite the fact that 4, if not 5 or 6 or so, tag teams in WWE on the Raw and SmackDown rosters are not even included in here. AOP, the Hardy Boys, Street Profits, etc. Ascension and the Colognes. But this is how it worked out. Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode beat the Lucha House Party, specifically Lince Dorado and Gran Metalik. Then Roode and Ziggler beat Hawkins and Ryder very quickly. Heavy Machinery beat Ziggler and Roode. New Day took out Heavy Machinery. The B team lost to the New Day. The New Day then defeated the Revival, so the New Day beat 3 in a row. And then the Revival attacked them after the match, after their elimination, I should say. Then that led the OC to get a quick victory over the New Day, and it ended up with the OC against the Viking Raiders. And oddly enough, despite the fact that everybody, including myself, just wrote off this as like, oh, the Viking Raiders are going to win, and it's pretty obvious, especially when they get to the final entrance. The OC wins. That's kind of crazy. And that really changed this whole dynamic around for me, because I was like, you know what? They always job out, and this is just, all right, let me start typing up that the Viking Raiders won. I like it and I don't. Kind of the same as the other situation with the Lesnar match. I like that they changed it up. I like that they did something unpredictable. And I like that they gave the OC a win, because they never really give them a win. So this is something quite different. But at the same time, I don't really like the idea that the Viking Raiders came in last and then lost. I kind of feel like maybe instead they should have changed this up a little bit. And maybe it should have been that, like, I don't know, the New Day won the first 3 matches, and then the Viking Raiders came in and won those next couple of ones and lost to the OC. Maybe something like that. Ultimately, the Viking Raiders destroy people left and right. It's not going to hurt them to lose this match. It's not going to be the type of thing where people suddenly go, oh my God, they're buried or anything like that, because they're not. Let's just, stop all that nonsense before you even start saying it. They're not buried. But it's still kind of weird. Although, if you're going to do that and you're going to give it to the OC and you give them an actual win, I think it's worth it. Anderson and Gallows never win all that much, and they need to win matches like this for them to actually be considered a top tag team. And now they're actually they've beaten the Raw Tag Team Champions. By all means, give them a title shot on Monday Night Raw, or do something next week or so, and set that, make this have been a setup for that. The Viking Raiders are not going to face AOP. Oh, well, they're certainly not going to face tomorrow because that's on SmackDown. But they got to build to that a little bit more. And I think that that's more of like a WrestleMania type of deal. So for now, the OC, set them up like this, have the Viking Raiders beat them, and that eats up a couple weeks, So I liked it overall. Then we had Mansoor against Cesaro, and this was probably my favorite match of the whole entire night. This was pretty damn good. Mansoor had this whole pre-position setup thing. He's going to win the match because he's from Saudi Arabia, so why would they do anything other than have him win? We all knew that was going to happen. It was a guarantee, but it didn't take away from the match. Cesaro did a really good job walking him through it. Mansoor stepped up. He wasn't just completely held up by Cesaro. He did his fair share of the work. He had some good moves here and there. He was pretty crisp in the ring. And there was a good spot in this that I thought was pretty nice where Cesaro had knocked him off the top rope and he fell into the turnbuckle and then flopped forward and went face down into the mat. And I thought that was really cool. And he just overall was pretty damn impressive. I liked this another showing of Mansoor to the point where I'm going to reiterate something I said before. Push him. Have him do something. He's 190 pounds is what they build him at. He can compete for the Cruiserweight Championship. Put him on 205 Live every couple of episodes here and there. Make him wrestle on NXT. Put him in a feud with somebody. Don't just have him be the guy that you trot out only for Crown Jewel and Super Showdown, So I like this. This was a really good match, and I think that if you missed it, you should go back and check it out. Can't say the same for Braun Strowman versus Tyson Fury. Very underwhelming match. Great entrance for Tyson Fury. And, everybody knows by now that I'm a big Braun Strowman fan. They could have pulled this out, and this could have been something a lot of fun. They got a lot of personality between the two of them, and they're showmen, but it seemed like they had choreographed every single little dance move in this, and it was just low energy, and I felt like they were, trying not to do anything, almost, to do, as little as possible to try to convince you that they were having a match without really having a match. It didn't really do anything for me. Now, Tyson Fury won. He won by count out. And the way that they did this, I'm not too opposed to. He punches Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman goes to the outside, and he doesn't answer the 10 count, but he's, stirring, and he's trying to get into the ring at around 9 or so. It's not a bad way of booking it. It's probably the way that I would have done things. That way, Tyson Fury is still undefeated. Braun Strowman doesn't have to really take a loss, even though he does lose. So it's not like he lost by total knockout, TKO loss, or the referee stopped the match, or they did a pinfall or a submission or anything like that. It's a loss, but it's not a, put up the quotes, loss, if you catch my drift. So I don't think that was really all that bad, but the match itself, just so blah, and I'm disappointed with that quite a bit. Maybe you disagree. I don't know. I think it was kind of weird that Braun Strowman right afterward just got up, gave him a power slam, and then Fury didn't really sell that. That was a little strange to me. That's kind of like having your cake and eating it too. They want Fury to win. They don't want him to really beat Braun Strowman. So Strowman has that whole setup. Then Strowman comes in to plant him. So that's he's still the guy on top. But then Fury doesn't want to sell that either. So he just gets right up. So it's like nobody really did anything for the most part. I think that when WWE books those kind of scenarios, they're really just asking you to forgive them, and they're really running out on forgiveness. There's too many situations going on right now where it's like, just get through this and forgive us, and we'll promise that the next thing is going to be good and whatever. This was underwhelming, and I don't know how they could have done it any other way, but at the very least, I think that I would have instructed them to say, hey, Tyson Fury, don't get right the fuck up after the power slam, Following this, we had a quick backstage segment where Samir Singh, not Sunil Singh, Samir Singh, managed to win the 24/7 championship. R-Truth had won it earlier in the night, as I said, and the Bollywood boys confronted him backstage, and R-Truth ran face first into a door, which opened him up to a pinfall, which Yeah, standard kind of shtick that they do for the 24/7 title. Not bad. Yeah, could have been better, could have been worse, whatever. So now it's gone from one of the Singh brothers to the other Singh brother, and they're gonna follow that up, I'm sure, on Monday Night Raw and kind of play off of that a little bit. And now R-Truth is like a 29-time champion or something like that. It's some absolutely absurd scenario. Which, by the way, if you like the whole 24/7 championship thing, then you probably were a fan of the Hardcore Championship. And I want to remind everybody that the Champs Giving tournament is going on right now. That is a tournament where we are trying to crown who the best hardcore champion was in WWE history. And I gotta say something. I put it the beginning of the poll for this week, the round 1 poll, has the question about this whole setup of, you do realize that this is supposed to be judging people based off of just their hardcore championship reign, correct? And there's been people that are voting for the option of, no, I don't want to vote there. I just want to vote on who I like the best, and I want to completely negate the entire purpose of this tournament. Guys, what the hell? What is the point of a tournament that tries to crown the best of something if you want to base it off of things other than that? I don't understand that at all. There are 7 people that voted for the option right now, at the very least that I'm looking at that, saying they want to go against the whole point of it. Please explain to me, if you are one of those people, drop a comment below. Why do you want to vote for something based off of the opposite to that? If you don't want to actually vote who the best hardcore champion is, and you only want to vote who the best superstar who happened to have won the hardcore championship at some point in the career is, don't vote on the tournament, guys. You're already making it to the point where I don't want to do one next year. Just putting it out there. And next year, I mean, depending on how this tournament goes down, and I'm going to put this poll up, this check question before every single round, just to see what ends up happening. But if it continues and we still keep getting people that are doing this, then no, there isn't going to be a Champs Giving tournament next year, because why ask you who the best women's champion in WWE is if you're going to judge it based off of people that never even won the championship or something like that? Like, if you're a big fan of Jillian Hall and you say that she was the best of all time just because you liked her and she held the belt for a minute, then what's the sanctity of the whole thing? You know what I mean? So if you want to keep it going and you want Champs Giving to actually be a thing, vote the way that the tournament's supposed to go. You know, I actually have not voted at all on any of the things because there's no horse in this race for me. The 24/7, the hardcore championship, I should say, is not one that I really tracked 100%. So it's not like I'm going to be like, oh man, I really think that like Goldust is so much better and he needs to win or something like that. So I have no horse in this race. And I don't care who wins. I just want to make sure that who wins is the person that people think is the best hardcore champion and not the person who they just like the best, depending on any of their career. Like, I don't want people voting for Chris Jericho saying, I love his work in AEW. That's stupid. So keep that in mind, everybody. And if you want us to do more oddball stuff, one thing that you should be aware of, you should know by now, but just in case you aren't, is our Patreon. Now, I've been mentioning this quite a bit recently because it's something that's on the bubble. We have a Pick Your Poison tier where if you donate to that certain dollar amount, then you'll be able to pick some kind of a special feature for us to do, you know, some kind of a gimmick like Belt or Bury or Heel or Face or Play the Game or something like that. And we have 2 that are coming up. One of them is sponsored by Guest 5, which is going to be fantasy booking the Invasion pay-per-view. And another one is sponsored by Marco, which is going to be a Mount Rushmore of comedy acts in pro wrestling. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to take care of one of those this weekend. And I'm not entirely sure 100% what we're going to do yet, but my game plan is probably to do the Mount Rushmore of comedy acts on Saturday. And then the Invasion one, we're going to do maybe Sunday if we actually get a chance to do it, or maybe something like Tuesday. It's kind of all going to depend. Next week, our schedule is going to be based off around the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. So that's going to kind of dictate a little bit. We got to wait until Thursday before we do our predictions for that instead of Wednesday, because we need to watch Dynamite to see if anything changes. So we might do this on Wednesday, and we might do it on Tuesday, something along those lines. At some point, we're going to end up getting around to it. So those two things are on the bubble. And if you want to take part in that, and you want to request some kind of a special feature, maybe you want to make sure that we do Time Machine Dream Team when it comes down to this whole Survivor Series thing, because we're either going to do that or we're going to do Call the Spot, and I haven't quite decided which one we're going to do yet. So maybe you want us to do both. And one of them that we decide not to do or something you want to request, then hit up the Patreon and take advantage of that tier. But maybe you don't have the money for that. And if that's the case, and you just want to toss $1 a month our way, that actually helps out quite a bit. It sounds kind of stupid, but the more people that do that, the more time that I can dedicate to more things on Smark Moment. Because if you think about it, if every person who subscribed to this YouTube channel tossed $1 a month towards that, that would pay for so much different stuff. That would pay for people on the writing team to actually make some money out of this. And it would pay for me to be able to take some time out of my schedule to do more stuff with Smark Out Moment. So pass it around, keep it in mind. $1 goes a long way the more that people do it. If everybody lifts with one finger, then nobody has to lift with both hands. You know what I mean? So that is something to be aware of. And also, the Patreon is going to potentially change a little bit. I wanted to do a dark match for the longest time. I wanted to have that be a Patreon exclusive thing. And I'm kind of hammering out the details a little bit more now. I took a couple minutes out of my schedule to do something based off of this. And yes, we're going to get back into Crown Jewel. Don't worry. I'm just getting my plugs out of the way for a little bit. But I wanted to do the dark match things. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought a good way to entice people to want to check out the dark match is to do the thing that we have been talking about here and there, which is the mock draft of all time. So I want to try to do that. And if I'm able to do that, then it's going to be uploaded to the Patreon as a Patreon exclusive thing. And I don't know exactly how I'm going to pull that off yet. I don't know if I want to have that for the $10 tier or a $20 tier or a $25 tier. Obviously, I'm sure everybody would agree the $10 tier is more affordable. But right now I have that as mailbag priority. And I kind of don't want to get rid of mailbag priority, but at the same time, I don't want to bump that down or bump it up too much, because to me, the Patreon exclusive dark match means more than the mailbag priority. So I can't see that being like $25 versus the $10 one for the dark match. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Is the setup that I have right now the right setup? $10 for the mailbag priority, where you make sure that all of your questions get answered, unless they're something like what's your address, and stuff like that. And then $20 for the Patreon only dark match that I would do once or maybe even twice or so a month, maybe even 4 times a month if I can figure out a time to do it. I would love to do once a week, and that would be, I think, relatively speaking, $5 a week to be able to do that. That makes sense, for $20. And then I was thinking about maybe a $25 tier where you have the audience vote, where you can actually pick some kind of a dark match topic. So that'll depend on how many people are actually signing up for it. If there's more than 5 people that sign up for that kind of a tier where we can actually have some kind of a poll, then I'll go ahead and do that. So keep it in mind. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you think that these are good ideas, let me know, so I know that you think that they're good ideas. If you think they're awful ideas, let me know that too, because if they're terrible, then I'm not going to do it. Simple as that. So I can keep talking on and on and on about the Patreon, but I will backtrack to this because we've stood away from Crown Jewel long enough that I want to get back to that and just talk about that a little bit more. Let's talk about the United States Championship match. That was AJ Styles against the winner of the Battle Royal, which was Humberto Carrillo. And if you saw the match on Monday Night Raw, it's basically the same kind of thing. There was it wasn't a copy and paste repeat of the match, I'm pretty sure. I don't know for sure, because they were both very forgettable. But the fact that we had just seen it 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago or whatever it was, I don't know, my math and my days, calendars. But we just saw it earlier this week, so why do I care, And Humberto Carrillo has never been somebody that I've been all that fond of, so the fact that he isn't telling a proper story in the ring, and that he's not somebody that I'm really getting behind, and we just saw this match, and it was pretty obvious that AJ Styles would win, and it was even more obvious that AJ Styles would win based off the fact that Carrillo had wrestled earlier in the night. It didn't do anything for me. So thumbs down on that one. AJ Styles wins by pinfall, retains the title. Then we had something that we didn't talk about on our predictions all that much, which was Lacey Evans versus Natalya, because after our predictions, they made that official. So the match is something that we've seen, like 10 times now or something this year. That wasn't anything special either. And I think if anybody says that it was an amazing match, they're kind of jerking themselves off about that. But the fact that it happened is so good. Finally, they are able to have the women's wrestlers perform, and that is something that it's like, why wasn't this a thing before? Like, it's just, I keep saying a lot of these things just, they're not that hard, and I kind of feel like certain things, yeah, cultures are different, and politics are confusing matters, and you should respect everybody else's culture and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I just can't get behind a culture that doesn't treat women as equals. And for it to be like, wow, we finally got a chance to do this kind of a thing, but they also have to like cover up, like, and wear t-shirts and do all this kind of stuff. It's just kind of like, come on, guys. Like, so I don't want it to get lost in translation here that this is such a good thing, because it is such a good thing. It's just a matter of, we shouldn't have to be talking about this in 2019 after a bunch of these different events as being like, wow, we finally took this step forward, because it never should have been a step that needed to be taken forward from the very beginning of it. You know what I mean? But still, great that this happened. Major highlight of the whole entire night. And I really hope that they continue this going forward. I really hope that they're able to put at least one women's match on every single card for Super Showdown, Crown Jewel, and anything else like that going forward, because just do it, just stop being so backwards. Lacey Evans, she seems like she's a babyface again, even though they did the whole, like, she was teaming up with Natalya, so she seemed like a face. Then she beat the crap out of that Cameron Connors, I think is what her name was. And they seemed like they really firmly made her a heel on that. And now she's back to being a babyface. So that's all over the place. I don't know what's going on with that. But Natalya won by submission, and they embraced afterward and all that. So could just be, we don't want you to seem like a bitch for something that's historic. Or it could be that Lacey Evans is a babyface. I don't know. Match itself was blah. Great that it happened. Then we had Team Hogan versus Team Flair, and the match was pretty good. Nothing to really complain about all that much. They had a really good near fall with the RKO that Randy Orton did. I like that quite a bit. I don't really remember all that much else from it. Nothing really stands out to me as like, and then this moment was really good, and this moment was really good. Ricochet had on a costume that was standing out quite a bit, but I don't know if that was really a positive or not. We were joking about it in the Mega Maniacs chat, and I was alluding to the fact that it looked like the trick-or-treaters that are going around now. Those costumes you see where people are dressed up as like a superhero and they have like the puffy muscles. I was, kind of making some jokes about that, saying that his mom wanted to make sure that he had enough time to go trick-or-treating afterward and couldn't get changed beforehand. So, yeah, I mean, other than that, it was a good match. It was fine. It was what it was. And I want to round out my plugs before I get into the main event here, and mention the fact that if you want some kind of superhero gear, then you should check out the merchandise shops, because I have the TeePublic and the Redbubble shops for Smark Out Moment, for A Mango Tees, and for Fanboys Anonymous. And that's where you're going to be where you find your parodies of the superhero genre and stuff. Like, for instance, if you really like the Grand Theft Auto Wasted thing, I've got a bunch of different variations of that. And I Love You 3000 from Avengers, and, it's just little stupid jokes and stuff like that. But that's where you're going to find that on the Fanboys Anonymous side of things, because fanboysanonymous.com is my site where I do all the stuff like the movie reviews and everything. And coming up soon, we're going to do, or I'm going to do at the very least, my review of Terminator Dark Fate. And if you know by now, Terminator 2 is my favorite movie of all time. And you should check out my predicting the plot for Terminator Dark Fate, because I think that this movie is guaranteed to be absolute trash. and follow exactly what has happened with every single Terminator movie for the most part since Terminator 2. So I might be ripping that to shreds on the Fanboys Anonymous YouTube channel. So head on over to fanboysanonymous.com, check out that stuff. And if you want me to do more, and you want me to do things like the thing that I keep alluding to, that I keep trying to work on here and there, which is redoing Pokemon Generation 1 and fixing up the Pokédex and changing up the names of different characters, and a little bit of a spoiler, the fact that I think that you should have every type in that game has some kind of a gym leader, not just the 8 of them. Who would I have picked to be gym leaders? How would I have rearranged their Pokemon? What would I have changed to the game? I want to do more stuff like that, but I don't have the time to do that kind of stuff. So that's where the Patreon comes in, because the more support you show for Fanboys Anonymous, the more time I can dedicate to Fanboys Anonymous. So if you want a fan tracks, head up to Pick Your Poison tier. If you want something like a review point of a movie, you want me to watch the movie and do the review point, the Pick Your Poison tier is another good way of getting around to that too. But if you just want me to keep doing some more stuff in general, toss a buck towards that. Head up to Patreon for that. Keep that in mind. And let's see here. We got our main event, which was the Universal Championship Falls Count Anywhere match between Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt. Lots of people are going to say that I'm just being needlessly pessimistic here, but I thought that this was a thumbs down. Now, a lot of people are going to go straight to, oh, this is great. Bray Wyatt won the title, and I'm happy about it. Is it good that Bray Wyatt won the title? Maybe. Would it have been good if Seth Rollins retained? Probably not. But WWE booked themselves into a corner here because they did not do the good thing at Hell in a Cell that could just kind of move on from here. And it's kind of a no-win situation, I think. Now, I alluded to this earlier when I was talking about Survivor Series, but right now we have both the WWE and the Universal Championships on SmackDown. So that means that Raw has no world champion again. That's not good. There's no way that that works out. So WWE is going to have to do something to change that up. How do they do it? When do they do it? Are they going to be able to pull that off in a way that makes people happy? I highly, highly doubt it. It's probably going to be some kind of convoluted nonsense. And it actually wouldn't shock me if any of these next suggestions happen. Number one, The Miz is supposed to have Bray Wyatt on Miz TV. It wouldn't shock me at all if they had a thing on Miz TV where Bray Wyatt relinquished the championship and they ended up just saying, no, we can't have two of them on SmackDown, so that's it. So we're going to crown a new champion at Survivor Series, or we're going to crown a new champion going into TLC, and we're going to do a tournament leading up to that or something like that. Would not shock me. Also wouldn't shock me if they had Bray Wyatt go back to Monday Night Raw and just take him out of the SmackDown thing in general. It also wouldn't shock me if they try to avoid doing anything and they keep this until after Survivor Series because they don't want to have Bray Wyatt versus Brock Lesnar, especially not versus Adam Cole. It wouldn't shock me if they had Bray Wyatt against Seth Rollins on some episode of Raw or SmackDown, and they ended up having him win the title back. It wouldn't shock me if they have all sorts of different convoluted, stupid responses to this. But what would shock me is if they find a way to manage to make Brock Lesnar, Bray Wyatt, both championships, Adam Cole, Survivor Series, Raw and SmackDown, all those elements, if they manage to find a way to have it all work. It's not going to happen. So if I judge it based off of that, I'm not optimistic for it. I don't think they're going to pull it out well. If I'm looking at it as just this match in particular, I hate the red lighting still. I think that that's a big mistake. I thought that they fought predominantly just right next to the ring, so that wasn't a really particularly enthralling Falls Count Anywhere match. I hate those stupid pyrotechnic spots because they look really stupid and silly, so that's not all that impressive. I didn't like watching stomp after stomp after stomp after stomp and super kick because that's what we saw the last time, and it's really not that fun to watch. And I just don't think that this was all that what it's cracked up to be. I thought that this was
If they were smart, they would have just had him win the Hell in a Cell match, and they would have avoided every single problem going into this, except the fact that they wanted Bray Wyatt on SmackDown for some reason. And maybe that's a problem of them not having to book your guy that's on an opposite brand and just getting around it that way. Planning ahead is not difficult, and not planning ahead leads to a bunch of different problems. So the next bunch of months could be a complete mess. And if their idea is, well, Brock will be around every once in a while or something like that, I don't know, man. I don't know. But Bray Wyatt is our new Universal Champion, and this could be a good thing, or it could be many, many bad things for a long, long time. We'll see. So for now, I'm just going to say that I don't like it. Maybe they change my mind. Hopefully they change my mind by tomorrow night. And we will talk about that as it unfolds throughout the next couple of weeks or so. The hot tags and the lead up to Survivor Series, and eventually the Survivor Series pay-per-view predictions, which will be coming up around, obviously the couple of days before that event and everything. But as I mentioned before, the next couple times you're going to be hearing from us is going to be the Mount Rushmore of comedy acts in WWE that Marco had suggested for the Pick Your Poison Patreon tier. Then either the hot tags or the fantasy booking invasion. If we do the hot tags first, then the next one after that's probably going to be the fantasy booking invasion. And then we're going to get into our AEW Full Gear predictions on Thursday, most likely. And then, of course, AEW Full Gear is going to happen, so we're going to do our post-show for that. So all that stuff is coming your way over the next week or so, including the Terminator Dark Fate review point for Fanboys Anonymous, and plenty of other things on smarkoutmoment.com and some other things on fanboysanonymous.com if I get around to doing that, as well as e-wrestling news and Bleacher Report and this and that and that and that. So just start clicking around on Facebook and Twitter at smarkoutmoment, at a mango tree, at Tony Mango, at Fanboys Anon or Fanboys Anonymous on Facebook, and so on and so forth, and you will start seeing plenty of things that are going down. But for now, I just want to thank you all for listening to this pay-per-view point, and I want to thank you in advance for your comments in the comments section below, and I will see you next time, because this has been another Smark Out moment, and I'm being counted out.